All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hurley Investments commentary for the last commentary for this half of the year. That's going to be June 28, 2021. I'm still keeping on for a couple more weeks. The most important thing in relation to successful trading or investing is patience. Patience, time, making sure that you're doing what you need to do. Now, I found something out, and I heard it today, and I heard it from a pretty liberal organization. So my quote of the day, the blockchain concept was pioneered within the context of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. But engineers have imagined many other ways for distributed ledger technology to streamline the world. Stock exchanges and big banks, for example, are looking at blockchain-type systems as a trading settlement platform. Now, I'm going to go a little bit different, and I'm going to make the comment that, how do I say this? Blockchain, they don't like it that way. Why not? Blockchain should be that way. Blockchain is the easiest way for someone to blackmail someone else. Why would I say that? Why would I say that blockchain is the easiest way for someone to blackmail someone else? Interesting. Last week I was on the golf course with Tyler out in Denver. He believed blockchain was the end-all be-all. He's going to let it sit for 20 years. Hopefully he'll be good to retire on it, hoping that that all his money doesn't disappear and he's got nothing to live on, right? But blockchain is the easiest way for someone to blackmail someone else. Why? And the funny part is I had this argument with Tyler, and Tyler was saying, well, Kevin, you don't understand. There's only 21 million block coins, right? To where I called BS. Because we already know 4.3 million have been lost. We also know that bits and pieces of coins can be mined. We know platforms can have them stolen and taken away. We know that blockchain or Bitcoin is the best thing for a cyber attack and a way to get paid. We also know that it's not necessarily trackable, even though the government says they can track some of it. We know that only 2.3 million of the $5 million ransom that was paid for the energy company back east was recovered. We also know Bitcoin is easy to negotiate ransom with someone that's hacked you. So, in the context of blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, the worst thing that's going to happen to it is what? What do you think the worst thing that can happen to Bitcoin is going to be, especially if you want to see it go higher or explode like it's exploded right now? What's going to be the worst thing for Bitcoin if people want to see growth in it? What do you think it's going to be? It's going to go out of business. That would be a good comment, William. Obviously, if it goes out of business, then you won't see any growth in it. No one is using it. Mod, that's a very interesting line. I'm going to go along that line. But what would cause less use of Bitcoin? Knowing that right now, upwards to maybe 60% of Bitcoin use is being used in a fraudulent way. Can't be proven. No adoption from governments. There you go. Or how about this? Adoption from government so it's regulated to the point that it doesn't grow. It's not a matter of no adoption, it's adoption from government. Because if governments start to adopt it and regulate the hell out of it, guess who's not going to be using it anymore? It'd be awfully hard to do a ransom if you had to register every Bitcoin you had, right? Awfully hard if there was a EIN number, a taxation number associated with the sale of every Bitcoin. You want to know what will kill Bitcoin immediately? Government regulation. Well, Kevin, that's not really fair. With all due respect, I challenge anyone to show me where government regulation has helped an industry to profitability. Feel free to type it in anytime as we're going through. Great big rise. S&P was down to only almost 10%, back up to 13% for the year. 2.7% grew from last week. Hurley Investments Group was up about 3.7%. So we beat the market by 1% last week. And it was not the energy in the financial sectors, even though they were higher. It was the FANG stocks that moved us higher. The FANG, the growth stocks that we have, Baidu moved, Disney was moving, Apple was moving last week. Those were the three big winners. Pretty interesting to see energy going higher. A lot of people have asked me, well, Kevin, should we be getting into oil? If you ask me pre-Trump, no, I didn't see oil back above $75 a barrel. It's obviously pretty close. Since we're a country that does not believe in some energy independence or does not believe in exporting our oil by already made wells and drills, that we're not willing to refine oil because it has to travel in a pipe from Canada down to our refinery systems, which could be as far down as Texas. Maybe we do have $100 barrel of oil. I don't see it. It shouldn't be as high as it is right now. That does not mean that it might not test that $80 range, just to keep that in mind. Earnings dates, something that I found pretty interesting. At Hurley Investments, we spread out the earnings dates. Instead of having them all be in about a 3 to 3.5 week period of time, we're stretching them out to a 9-week period of time. Plain and simple, we have the banks that are starting in a couple weeks. We have retail that's more towards the end, and we have the typical 87% of all the S&P companies that report in that 6-week earnings season are still in that earnings season. But as we take a look, Apple, Boeing, they're towards the end of July. Alibaba, Bank of America towards the middle of August. Bank of America is 2 weeks away. Costco's way out towards September. So we've really stretched out our earnings season as we're looking at the companies that are moving. Disney's the beginning of August. Ford's the end of July. Facebook the end of July. First Solar the end of July. GE the end of July. General Motors the beginning of August. JP Morgan, as I said, here in 2 weeks. Micron this Thursday. Target and other retail sales towards the end of August. Under Armour the end of July, and Visa the end of July. It's like we've got a couple banks grouped together. A couple weeks, we then go through 2 weeks of the S&P standard earnings season. We got a couple weeks after that into August. We run our China stocks, and then we've got Costco that's the laggard. So it's interesting to see how we're looking at our earnings dates are expanding at Hurley Investments as we're trying to find new opportunities, and more places to put that money. If I was to ask you guys, in fact, I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to launch a poll. If you guys want to take a guess, where do you think July is going to end? And just as a heads up, right now the S&P 500 today ended, as I insert my picture, ended at 42.90. So someone tell me, where are we going to end July? I want you guys to take your best educated decision. You get to click on one of those that's listed in there for you. We will have earnings season, which might be the catalyst that we're looking for. The problem is we also don't see the job growth. There's no job growth right now, which means there'll be no earnings or income growth that'll justify S&P 500 growth. All right, I'm going to give you 5 more seconds to make your vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to close them. I'm going to let you guys see them. Pretty interesting. 2 of us are outliers and saying it's going to be down 200 points, which is roughly 0.5%. That's not true. 200 points. We finished at you're saying down about 5%. Most of you are saying it's going to stay right where it's at. A couple of you give us a 3% higher. That's interesting because if I was going to make the decision, right now I'm going to go that 3% higher, that 43%. The 8 of you that are basically saying, hey, 43, 47. I would probably tend to agree with that. Now, it's interesting because if you are going to look at where I got these facts and figures from, all I did was I took, there's good English, I took our pivot points to make our decision. We had a bounce off of the 50-day and the center pivot point. We just bounced above the resistance level 1. I've got resistance level 2 up there. That's how I was trying to make my decision on where we're going to head to. If you take a little interesting look, last time we bounced off, we went to pivot point 2, and we stayed around that pivot point 2, which means even with good earnings like we had in April, there's a good chance we're going to stay around that pivot point, the R2 resistance level, hit 43.47 up to maybe $4,400. Round numbers seem to hold for an R2 pivot point. But you can go through and see in the last 6 months, we've done it twice. Bounced off the 50-day, went up to that R2 pivot point, which is pretty close to 2 standard deviations, and then we came back down. So we might have a pretty good July. Second point that's going to move us higher, we're looking like we're going to get some type of infrastructure bill. And when I say some type, I actually have an article that I found rather interesting. There we go. It's my last one. Transportation, 109 billion for roads, bridges, major projects, 11 billion for safety, 49 billion for public transit, 66 billion for passenger and freight rail, 7.5 billion for electrical vehicle infrastructure, 7.5 billion for electrical buses and transit, 1 billion for reconnecting communities. Not sure what the hell that is. 25 billion for airports, 16 billion for ports and waterways, 20 billion for infrastructure financing. Another 55 billion for water infrastructure, 65 billion for broadband, 20 billion for environmental remediation, 70 billion for power infrastructure, 5 billion for western water storage, 47 billion for resilience or prevention response emergency, including wildfires. If you add all that up, we have basically 100, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. We have 650 billion that's going to go to monthly government paychecks to those couples that have that make less than $150,000 a year. We still will have $650 for payments where the government's going to continue to pay us. Our biggest problem right now is our workforce. We can't get workers back to work because some people can make between $48,000 to almost $60,000 a year, half of it tax-free without working. The fact that we gave people an incentive to sit on their butt is not helping our big opening, which means usually September, which is the third worst month in the year, October, which is the worst month historically for the S&P 500. What if we got a big surge of workers? And we kicked off a little bit late, but we kicked off our Christmas rally with people getting back to work, with people making money, with creating inventories to sell. We could see a pretty big bump in our September, October, which would buck the historical trends that we typically see. If I was to ask you where our markets are going to end this week, we're pretty much in the same camp, especially by way of when it came to the where we're going to go higher. I'm going to say flat. Our markets are probably going to be flat this week. They definitely look flat for our single day, where we seem to be building a base again, building a base which could be a triple top. So it's rather important for the Dow and those 31 stocks that we see them go higher due to earnings. The S&P, we're already breaking up to new highs. Pretty neat, because basically what we've done is we had a double top, and we're breaking above it. To really get to that R2 resistance level would be ideal for a September, October rally. We're just going to get up to that 43,400, 4350 level, 4400 level. We'll move sideways from there until September, with our catalyst being people getting back to work. Boy, would that help out Disney and Under Armour, some of the stocks that we currently hold. NASDAQ finally moving higher again. Big scare. Ran up. We almost had the triple top there. We broke above it. So right now on an index level, we're looking at broad growth. Growth stocks are not necessarily moving, but broad growth across most industries, and we're looking for all-time highs or new highs. That's going to bode well for earnings coming up this particular season. For the S&P in July, if I stand with everything, I've got to say 3%. Earnings this week, Herman Miller, Bed Bath Beyond on Wednesday, General Mills and Micron. Merrick and Walgreens Boot Alliance on Thursday. Not a whole lot's happening here. We do have average work week on Friday. So no economic reports are probably going to move us much higher. But don't forget, Wednesday being the last day of the month, you will probably see a bit of a sell-off because the following Monday, July 5th, will be a day off for the market. The markets are closed next Monday. For that reason, we will have our trade findings and adjustments canceled next week on Tuesday, and we'll move our commentary over to Tuesday. You guys all enjoy next Monday and the vacation. The market is closed. Nothing really international that stood out, except for Wednesday you have the PMI Services Index on China. Nothing that really would be looking to move markets higher or bring us down. How am I looking to trade? I'm just letting some things run right now. We're going to run into earnings. Pretty neat to see Robinhood's IPO plan slowed by the SEC. They are not a good business to work with. When you get something for nothing, you see it, and I am not allowed to tell you some stories, but there have been some horror stories where you can lose your whole portfolio, upwards to a six-figure portfolio, because of a mistake that they make. How companies jump for enthusiasm for offices and vaccines, for people going back to work. Pretty interesting article on how they're going to expect people to be vaccinated, how to protect their workforce. I found an article that I don't necessarily agree with, but I like some of the comments that were made. A lady supposedly built a six-figure investment. I was unable to verify it through tax records, but built a six-figure investment while paying off debt. And basically what she's saying is early mistakes in the stock market, don't let it hold you back. Ask for help when you need it. Start small. Start to contribute something. It adds up over time. Make room in your budget to pay yourself first. I disagree with this one. In all honesty, if you're doing a true debt elimination plan, pay off your higher credit cards. You're not going to splurge. You're not going to pay yourself first. Pay your debt. Kevin, what about the retirement accounts? Very rarely, if ever, will the stock market returns beat a high interest credit card. It's simple numbers. This is not rocket science. If you have a high credit card debt, high interest, pay it off. Yes, it's going to affect your retirement, but please understand, stock markets do not have compounding interest. Stock markets do not move in a linear fashion, a 7.7% average. In fact, stock markets haven't moved for decades. We've had a lost decade. They are jagged. So this thought that you pay yourself first and you get this automatic growth, that's bullcrap. Invest consistently and for the long term. I do like that. Stay current to open to learn new things. I also disagree with this, but I guess the comment is, what new things are you learning? If you're trying to learn new things in the stock market, that throws up a red flag. If you're trying to find new ways to budget or do a better job of budgeting, new ways to save, that could be a really good thing for you. If you earn less than 2%, use the 1% spending rule to save your money. Plain and simple, if it's going to cost you more than 1% of your $200,000, then you don't buy it. You have to wait a day and you have to justify it. Warren Buffett's heavily away, giving away his massive fortune. An interesting article just to show you why Warren Buffett's not leaving money to his kids. I had this brought to my attention. Nike is a brand that is of China and for China. Please read through this report. I verified it through the Schedule K and the comments that were made at the earnings. I'm going to say I'm disappointed, but do pay attention to see where Nike might have its new headquarters or move its permanent headquarters to. Again, I had that infrastructure, where the money's going to. A very interesting article that we found here in the Salt Lake area. Do read through it. I found it very interesting. Plus, I wanted to see where some of the money was going to. And last but not least, Federal Reserve gives U.S. banks a thumbs up on all 23 lenders as they easily pass the stress test. As you look into these a little bit more, J.P. Morgan, I think, was number one. I can't remember who number two was, but Bank of America was number three. All right, guys, what questions do you have for me? What questions can I answer for you guys to help you understand what your money's doing and why? Give you a second to get something in there. That was quick. When are you preparing for earnings? Again, we usually prepare for earnings 2 weeks before the earnings date. So as I look at where a lot of what our earnings is going to look like, our banks we've already have basically covered for their earnings. So probably the 12th through the 7th, the 12th through the 16th is where we'll start to protect earnings for those that are at the end of July. That's going to be, if you look at our list, William, that's going to be the Apples, the Boeing, the Ford, the Facebook, the First Solar, the General Electric, the Under Armour, the Visas. Those will all run that last week, so we'll probably try to start to protect them 2 weeks before, or if they're having an earnings run, we're going to let them go as long as we can. That first down day, we'll get some protection on and protect through earnings. But we definitely want to take part of the pre-earnings run. Good question. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you guys? Kind of a quiet group today. All right. Don't kill the messenger. A Canadian analyst says Disney is a dead stock. Please comment. Yes, in fact, I've heard a couple times that Disney is basically all washed up. I disagree. Kevin, why do you disagree? Eventually, they're going to get their cruises open. They do have $2 billion movies that are going to open up. One of them is coming up here shortly, the end of July. So they do have $2 billion movies that are here this year that will significantly move their earnings higher. And most importantly, they just hit 120 million subscribers last quarter, and watch them add another 20 million this coming quarter when you only saw Netflix add 4.3 million. Not only that, they've got 2 other shows to keep you enticed. So in all honesty, I believe that Canadian person was doing something like we saw in Apple a couple weeks ago, talking the stock down so their firm can add more shares. Pretty interesting, kind of bugs me, but pretty interesting. You see it quite a bit. Good notice there, Mary. Yes, I'm adding First Solar. We're going to talk about First Solar tomorrow, and we're going to start to initiate a couple positions on First Solar in the future, giving us the ability to take advantage of at least another year and a half of Democratic rule, which really says a lot for the green stocks that are out there. Green stocks should move higher. First Solar has the opportunity to get back up to 110, sitting at 95. So we're looking at about a 15% return here in the near future, at least going back by past history, even though past history is no guarantee of future performance. We're going to try to ride on the free money that's going to come through an infrastructure, and First Solar could be a big beneficiary of that. All right. If there are no other questions, I appreciate you guys being here tonight. Everyone say hello to Emily. Emily's back. It's been a while since we've seen her. Emily, give people a second here, and they are going to welcome you back. But glad to have Emily here with us tonight. It's been a while. Russ is here. Dr. Gupa, nice to see you. All right, guys. There we go. There's a couple welcome Emily's. Welcome to the group, Emily, from Jim Kohler. You had 2 welcomes and 1 highs. So, all right, guys. Hey, have a good evening. Jim, if you are available, I'd like to give you a quick call. If you don't mind, please text me if you're available for a quick minute. And everyone else, you guys have a great evening. Good night, everyone.